Oh, yeah? Well, you know what? The paladin, he suddenly has +5 armor. You can't hit him anymore. Ha! What you gonna do about that? Oh, you want to cast some magic on it? You want to cast some magic on my NPC? Oh, do you really? Do you really? Well, he just happens to have, he's got a ring of magic and vulnerability. Ha! Now you can't do anything about that. So what are you going to do? Nothing. I win because I'm the GM. Ha ha! Sucks to be you. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM. My name is Guy, and well, if that introduction hurt you a little bit, I'm sorry, it hurt me a lot more, let me tell you. So what am I talking about? Well, the thumbnail and title should have told you that, but you might not have read that part. You might have skipped on through like all miserable players do as they try and beat the game master, as they try and play the game to win the game against the game master. We're talking about the player versus the GM syndrome. Now, I confess, I used to have this. I used to suffer from it. This was a question that was posed to me from our Discord community. That's discord.gg/greatgm. If you want to join our community, we have a section where you can propose titles for videos and questions for videos and things. And this was posed in that channel. I don't remember by whom, but it came from there. So thank you for proposing it. The question was, how do you prevent player versus GM or GM versus player mentality in a game where it oftentimes can feel like the GM is against the players and that the players are against the GM? Well, my answer is you shouldn't want to stop it. But one of those people, one of those parties, I should say, within that equation should be playing to lose. But actually yes. I think you know what I'm talking about. So when you start to look at the idea of role-playing, the game master, the GM, is always going to be in a position where they can win anything. They can win any outcome. Quite literally, the player characters can walk into a bar and the GM can fill that bar with level 500 NPCs, so that when the players start a bar fight, the NPCs obliterate the player characters. The player characters are constrained by the rules in which they are being created. Theoretically, the GM's NPCs are constrained by the same rules, but there's no rule saying that you can't have level 500 characters in a tavern that the PCs happen to go in, and the PCs are all low level. So the GM can always win. So what does that mean for you as the GM? Well, hopefully it means that you should be then aiming to never win. Gary Gygax himself in his book, The Master of the Game, quotes the statistic that characters should feel as if they have a 30% chance of winning and a 70% chance of death, where in actual fact, it should be the other way around. The mathematics, the balance, the game master is running the game as if the characters have 70% chance of survival, but only a 30% chance of death, but that it feels like they have a 70% chance of death and a 30% chance of survival. So he said that, and that was in the early days of Dungeons and Dragons. It was in the 1980s that he wrote that book. Very good book. I think you can get sort of secondhand copies of it if you want to have a read of that. The first half is good. The second half of it is no longer relevant because of modern day technology, but nonetheless, it's still a good read. So what happens? Where does it go wrong? Well, as far as I'm concerned, the GM starts to lose perspective. They start to forget what their job is. And their job is to create conflict for the PCs to overcome it. The PCs should be able to overcome the obstacle in front of them. I'm not saying that they should be able to do it easily. I'm not saying that they should walk into every encounter expecting to win. They should walk into every encounter going, we need to work together. We need to think about this. We need to do intelligent choices. We need to, oh God, of course the person is doing that. We know that that's going to happen. But at the fundamental level, the characters need to go into battle anticipating that they could potentially lose if they don't focus and do what is required. We are creating tension as game masters within the game by giving them the, you might just die if you don't play your cards right. If you don't make the right decisions, you could potentially die. So we're creating tension that way. GMs who start to pitch battles against their characters, their player characters, and try to beat their player characters, oftentimes have started to get tired of losing and are feeling as if the GM themselves, if they themselves are actually the losers. They're starting to feel persecuted. Oh, my player characters always beat up the bad guys. They always kill all my orcs. They always do this. They always do that. Why does that happen? Why does the GM start to feel as if they're the ones that are being persecuted by the player characters? Well, the answer, quite simply, is that the players are not showing the GM any form of respect after the game. And by respect, I mean they don't have to go, all hail the great GM. They literally just need to go, oh, that was such a great session. Thank you so much. It was so cool when we got to the war chief and he did that big speech and then we got to fight him and then we cut his head off. That was brilliant. If you don't say that and you have gone and fought the war chief and you cut his head off, the GM is sitting there going, I gave them all this wonderful mechanics and they just killed him in 2 seconds flat. And once they were dead, once he was dead, they looted his corpse and they moved on. I'm getting angry and frustrated. So next time I'm going to make that orc 10 times more powerful, and then it's suddenly GM versus player. And that's what you don't want. So that's first step, is always be courteous to the GM. And as a GM, remember your job is to lose, but to just lose. So that's the first step as far as I'm concerned. The next reason why it starts to come in is the GM is, by their position, the antagonistic force. They are always going to be in a situation where they are fighting against the characters. If not, the game would be incredibly boring. I walk up to the sheriff. Release that prisoner from prison. Well, okay. What? Yeah, I'll release him. You asked me. I'll release him. All right, prisoner, don't try and escape. No, I won't escape. I'll follow along. Well, if you try and escape, we'll have to shoot you. I'm not going to escape. Don't you worry. I'm just going to follow along. All right, we walk past the sheriff. Don't try and stop us. Not going to try and stop you. You go ahead. You want to. If there is no adversary, if there is no antagonistic force, the player characters are not going to have fun. At the same time, if there is too much antagonistic force, release that man from prison. No, and you're all under arrest for even suggesting that we should release him from prison. And I have 15 armed guards here who will overpower you and take all of your equipment and put you in prison. No, you cannot get through the metal bars of the prison because the sheriff inspects the room every day by washing down all of the walls, removing all of the furniture, and has a 24-hour guard watching you all the time. You have no clothing which to urinate on and try and get out of prison using the urinated cloth to bend the bars, which we all know as a trick and which actually remarkably does well work. So, no, you are naked in the cell. You don't even have hair. Okay. Wow, what should we do? Oh, let's wait for the plucky prisoner next door to tell us his escape plan that he needs us to help him with. No, there is no one else next to you, and the rooms are all soundproofed, and the guards forbid you from talking. So too much antagonistic force, and the players are going to feel like you're just having a bad day and are just trying to shut them down. Too little antagonistic force, and, well, they're going to feel like there's no point in playing because they can just do whatever they like. So that means you as the GM are going to be the antagonistic force. You're going to be the thing that they butt up against. That's your role. So you need to be able to be comfortable with that. And if you are not comfortable with being defeated, remember, you're the antagonistic force that's there to be defeated. The first rule of being a GM is you're there to lose. If you're not comfortable with that, then that's going to cause issues. Of course, it's about a fair balance between how much antagonistic force, how often you give the characters an obstacle, versus how often you let them succeed. But do it too often, and you become, oh dear, a very, very difficult person. Another area where the player versus GM spectre can raise its dark and ugly head is in the post-game chatter. I have heard GMs in the past looking at their players and going, you guys are so dumb. You know, I set up that thing to take 5 minutes and you took 3 hours to resolve that. You are really dumb. How is it living with being so dumb? Do you even realize how dumb you are? When the GM starts to brag about how they've created riddles and situations that their players couldn't overcome, and how easy it could be for the players, or should have been for the players to overcome, you're starting to set up an antagonism between yourself and your players. You're literally saying, I am better than all of you combined. They're either going to rebel or they're going to leave because, oh, who wants to be around someone who makes you feel stupid? So out-of-game chatter is also important. You can twist the knife, if you like, to create tension. I know I've certainly done this before, but in character. So you might send a text message. You receive a note from the Duke of Dardanelle, and the note says, "Oh, fool, you took months to overcome a simple trap. I have peasants who are more literate than you. Mwahaha! I have the princess, and soon I shall have your head." That is a great way of just poking the bear, if you really want to, of the player character and getting the players to go, oh my goodness, this Duke, I am going to slap him down, I am going to beat him down and make him pay. Whereas if it's you as the GM going, you're a dumb idiot and you all should take lessons from dumb idiot creatures or whatever, all the wrong words aside, if you are being condescending to your players, they're going to be fighting back or leaving. So that's the other thing. And then finally, one of the other reasons why this antagonism can happen is through poor adventure design. If you don't design an adventure well, if you don't design an adventure that is balanced and engaging for the players' characters, if you're designing an adventure for yourself, or for your own rules, your own perfect build in your own head, the players are going to feel like they can't get anywhere. And this is about reading the group. Now, I've been in games where the GM has said, build a character that is combat-oriented, but also build a character that's narratively strong. And I've built a character that was narratively strong and fairly poor at combat. I was at fault for not following the GM's instructions, but the GM then didn't adapt the situation to allow for the character to be able to do something in combat. So every time combat rolled along, my character just surrendered. Because when they tried to do something, the mathematics was so bad that they actually physically couldn't do anything. So they would just surrender, which frustrated the GM, so he would throw more combat into the situation, which meant I surrendered more, which started to create an antagonistic force between myself as the player and him as the GM. Again, it's about trying to find that balance. So we are juggling a lot of things that can cause our game to fall over and to break. It's not what we are after. That was not our original goal. So how do we fix this? How do we bring this all together and say, okay, we are all friends, hopefully. What should we do? The very first step, and this has helped me in my career, I cannot tell you how often, because it breaks me out of the mold of, oh, I've got to make it harder. I've got to beat these guys. I've got to put them in their place. Cheer for the PCs. When they roll that natural 20 or when they roll maximum damage, you go, wow, that's a fantastic hit. Your blade, your lightsaber, your blaster just goes perfectly through. It destroys the enemy in a shower of, bloody, gory, smudgy, liquidy stuff. Cheer for the PCs. Make sure that they see that you as the GM, you as the friend, are cheering them on. And when you go, oh, guys, I'm so sorry. The ogre has just rolled a critical hit. And, oh, no, look at that. You don't have to pretend. Genuinely go, oh, my goodness, this character, they're going to die because I've just rolled maximum damage. Just reflect upon it and show them that you're on their side, and that will help diffuse a sense of you as a person being the antagonistic force, as opposed to the enemies, the monsters that they're fighting, being the bad ones that they should be showing their aggression against. So that's an important thing to bear in mind. Then, once you start to realize that, you have to embrace the idea of loss. That means you have to surrender. Bearing in mind, though, that when you surrender, when your character, your NPC surrenders, that does not mean that they are defeated. So if it is difficult for you to give up, to stop, to surrender, bearing in mind, unless the players kill them outright, in which case you haven't learnt your lesson, if the characters let those individuals go. Turn it on its head. Don't have them try and get revenge. That is the least and last thing that you should be doing. Why? Because it means that the player characters are going to learn, hang on a moment, every time we let an NPC go that we have defeated, that NPC goes off, gets upskilled somehow, gets trained, and comes back and seeks revenge. That's not right. That is absolutely unacceptable. So we're just going to kill everyone that we come across. You're creating murder hobos, and you don't want that. Nobody wants murder hobos, because that's how you get murder hobos. So what you do is you have them surrender, and then later on you have them go encounter the monster again, encounter the NPC again, and have that NPC treat them as friends. You spared me when you had no reason to. I am appreciative. I will show you the secret shortcut through the mountains that will get you past the orc horde that is waiting there to ambush you. And if you don't trust me, that's your choice. But if you trust me, I will get you to the other side. You as the GM have just moved the orc ambush, of course, to the other side of the mountain once the NPC has sent them on their merry way, going, well, now it's down there. It's still dangerous, but at least I've shown you the way. Again, that no longer encourages murder hobos. It no longer encourages the antagonism of GM versus player. It's saying this is the world. The world is real, and it does that kind of stuff. So there is definitely that. Another option for you to do is to create NPCs who openly support the player characters. Different from an NPC who is defeated in combat now becoming friendly, create NPCs who champion the player characters on. When player characters and when players become disillusioned or frustrated with the game, create an NPC who joins the party as the dishwasher or the sword straightener or the shield dent remover NPC. And the players can get frustrated. Have that NPC go, well, you know what I would do in your situation? I'd probably do something along these lines. I know it's tricky and it's frustrating, but that's what I would do. Never be afraid to help the PCs and, by extension, the players. What it does, again, it reaffirms that you as the GM are there to create a series of events that the player characters have to experience. There is nothing wrong with creating an event where an NPC assists the party, assists the player characters in achieving their ultimate goal. What you are also doing is you're saying, look, not every NPC is evil and not every NPC is out to get you. Here are some who just want to help you because they're just nice people. By making them nice, you make them lovable, and, you know, that's a good thing too. It also means that if you are going to have the party attacked by assassins, they could go after the lovable NPC rather than the PC. Again, players who feel persecuted by it's another assassin attack. You always try to kill us with assassins. Notice that sentence. You always try to kill us with assassins. That's directed at the GM. Whereas if the assassins are trying to kill the NPC, you always try to kill yourself with assassins. What? It has diffused the situation. It's no longer player versus GM. It's now player versus GM, which is a much more interesting situation to be in to begin with. But the point is that it starts to show the PCs that the world is a living, breathing, real space as much as you can simulate it as a single human being, and that you are fairly dispensing your, violence and death and assassination attempts, regardless of whether you're a PC or an NPC. You are going to die. Well, no, you're not going to die, but you get my point. Then finally, try to make sure that you structure your adventures in such a way that the fun is in that journey. Well, what does that have to do with player versus GM? If you are only ever giving your players combat and the journeying part, the downtime, you're brushing over or you're racing and rushing to get the players through, the players are not ever getting any sense of relaxation or of calm or of being able to take charge of things. They are being persecuted by you. You're constantly driving them, constantly pushing them, constantly attacking them. That might be a theme for a particular adventure, but in a campaign, you should have an ebb and a flow. You should have moments of pressure, moments of relaxation, moments where it's up to the player character to decide. As the GM, if you're always telling the player characters what to do or always demanding that they do something according to what you have launched or what you have triggered as an event, players are going to feel like you are attacking them and punishing them for doing things. And then when they don't do something, you punish them by throwing more encounters at them because you want the combat to happen. It is and should always be seen as being perfectly acceptable to have moments where you as the GM shut up, sit back and watch the players run through their motions of their characters in downtime and decide what adventures they want to go on. Because now they're driving the narrative rather than you driving the narrative. You're still triggering events, but they are the ones deciding where to go rather than you shepherding them and forcing them to go in different directions. Those are my thoughts on what you need in order to diffuse the player versus GM situation, what causes it to arise and what causes it to dissipate, hopefully. Hit that like button. I think it's on this side this time around. I don't know. It moves. Trust me, it moves. Always moving. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you want to get notifications. Hit that Goblin Bell of when new videos come out. They do come out regularly. We've recently changed our time slot, so bear that in mind. But yes, I hope this has been useful. What do you do to diffuse player versus GM? Or are you one of the lucky ones? We frequently get people writing in the comments, well, I don't know who you've been playing with, but the people we play with are absolutely awesome. Well, good for you. Let us know that there are moments out there where you haven't ever come across the player versus GM space. And if you did, how did you overcome it? Let us all learn from each other. I love reading the comments, so please include them. This week's sponsor is the incredible Dungeon Fog. Now, they've just released, or will be releasing in the next week. I get confused in my little brain, but it's coming shortly. They've just released their in-system text-based system of text adding to your maps. Why is this important? Well, it allows you to do a whole bunch of stuff, especially when you combine it with what Dungeon Fog normally does. So I've created a standard map here. And if I zoom in, you can see I've got some text here. The lever at the far end opens bars to stop poison gas. I've got the names of the tombs on the map. I've got the actual gas itself stops poison gas, DC 15 con or minus 1d6 con damage. So the PC's got to get across the room to pull the lever in order to open this lever, to pull the lever to stop the gas. All that kind of wonderful and cool stuff. Completely nonsensical dungeon, by the way. Who would build it so that... Anyway. The point is, I've now been able to add in this text. I've also added in some labels here for the PCs because maybe they've got a map that shows them the location, and adding in text is really easy. Now, they've just added it in as a little button here on the side, which has all the functionality you could possibly want it to do. What I particularly like, though, is that you can type in whatever text you might do, thank you, sponsor, and then you can place it around on the map as you so like. You can then select it, go in, and you can change its size, you can change the font variant. Let's make this 32. And then, of course, it's got all of the other cool stuff in it, which I really like, which is things like, first, you can put a border around it, you can change the color of the border, but you can also make it so that it needs a key, or is it's concealed, or it's a trap. Now, the concealing part works really well because it allows you to hide information from your players. If you're going to subscribe to Dungeon Fog, use the code GREATGM and you'll get a discount. Dungeon Fog, we love you. Thank you for watching this video. And until next time, goodbye. Let's move that there, I think. No, there was better. Oh, and save.